listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is November 22nd, 2022, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Tuesday?
Spencer, hello. Here we are. This is our last Shadowlands show, right? From now on, it's Dragonflight. We're in the home stretch. There's like 6 days left, less than 6 days left until expansion. So it's a bit of a weird week. This is like the lamest duck of all lame duck weeks of an outgoing expansion.
It really is.
I feel like, it's like it's been such a weird pre-patch cycle and everything. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, it really doesn't feel like it's time for expansion because stuff has changed so much over the last 12 months. But I guess it's a good thing. Like, I haven't been sitting around twiddling my thumbs going, I'm just going to wait until Dragonflight comes out to play. But, this week, there's really nothing like super new and exciting to dive into. That was all last week. But here we go. We finally made it. It was a rocky one. I think I'm really excited about what's coming, and I think we're going to move into a pretty fun era of the game. So it's exciting, man. I'm starting to see last week was the week, and I'm seeing it a bit already after reset this week. Like, people that have been gone for a long time are not gone right now. So that's really cool. It's good to see some old friends and stuff, and hopefully that means that, Team 2 does enough right with Dragonflight at the outset that people stick around.
Yeah, that's the prayer we're all putting out there right now, is that everything's correct enough at launch that people stick around for at least the first 2 months, and then they're able to actually get out the next wave of things that keep people interested when it comes to fixing things and taking care of problems and all that kind of stuff, because that's typically how expansions go. But it's, as you said, a very weird pre-patch. I have definitely had like the hype train roller coaster of starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping this past chunk of time, where it's really fun to hop on for like a day or two, and then you're like, okay, well, now nothing's the same. Sorry, everything's done, and nothing's going to be the same in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, depending on when you were playing. So is it really worth investing a bunch of time into trying to, in my case, because the way I play the game, min-max things out to try and like figure out, I need to figure out what my best rotation is for this particular talent set at this particular level at this particular stage of the game, versus actually and only for a short period of time versus just waiting. So I've taken the just waiting boat and spent my time a little bit elsewhere when it came to the min-max stuff. So we went in and did raid last week. We basically decided to raid one day of the week and just clear as much as we possibly can, raid for the full 3-hour window that we wanted to raid for. And so we, went and knocked out a bunch of bosses, did the skips and that sort of thing to sort of get as much down as we could. Had our evokers in, had to keep rotating them out because of, just being one shot by mechanics in a lot of cases, where it's like the person playing the evokers going, how did that kill me? It only hit me for 45k or 50k. And you're like, yeah, well, the issue is you have 50,000 hit points. Everyone else is 75. So
right. Yeah. Like, that item level does actually matter when it comes to, you need some stam on that gear.
Yeah. So it was, an interesting experience, but I'm looking forward to next week when we're actually into Dragonflight and stuff starts kicking off. I think this week again will be another quiet one for me, with not diving too deep into how to play my class really well with the state of the game at the moment. It just feels weird. Like, the game just feels weird in this state for me. It's not.
Yeah, we get these like incomplete talent builds and all this stuff, and
it's not speaking to me the way that it needs to be inside this pre-patch. Previous pre-patches just felt sort of ridiculous and over the top, and I kind of have fun with it. This one's kind of like, I just want Dragonflight so I can start learning to play Dragonflight better. That's really where it's at for me.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's a little bit weird without the without the missing talent points and all that. We're just it's a little strange.
It's a little strange. You got Covenant system still. You got legendaries that are doubling up. You got I got Convoke on a 30-second cooldown. Like it's very strange to like play the game at the moment. Like all that's going to go away and change, so it feels very strange to do that at the moment. But yeah, how about you? What'd you get up to this past week in WoW?
Well, one thing that really wasn't publicized, I don't think, anywhere this week was that they added quadruple fated.
Yep.
So you could turn on every boss would have all the affixes. So we did that, and it was wacky, believe it or not.
I'd imagine.
Like the with 4 affixes all on different timers and everything, they're all kind of staggered out, and you're just sort of doing the fated affixes more than you're doing any particular fight mechanic.
Right.
Because you have to react to the fated affixes or you die. But then, you also get these huge bonuses. And I mean, we were seeing bosses just behave in hilarious ways because stuff was dying and pushing so fast and whatever. It did make some fights kind of complicated, believe it or not. Like, it was actually hard. We did like the first boss in Sepulchre, and that was hard because with all those different affixes, that arena is so big and that stuff can kind of spawn anywhere. And if, when you have like an emitter that's way far away from where the group is moving, like you might not be able to get to that in time or something. So it created some weird wrinkles, but for the most part, I mean, doing quadruple was pretty fun. I think we'll do it again tonight. And because like when you have a pretty straightforward boss in like a regular sized room, it just melts. It's pretty hilarious. Did a little bit of keystoning, not too much. I think we just ended up doing, for some reason we had like Iron Docks keys. Iron Docks was the key of the week. We did a couple of those on like plus 21. We did get a teleport for a guildie that hasn't really been working on them, but so she can get up to Gorgrond easy from now on, I guess, if that's interesting in some way. So that's cool. I did make an evoker. I did the starting questing experience and got to level 60 and everything. I thought the story questing was awesome. Like, it was really well done. The zone is beautiful. It tells a really cool story and kind of weaves these evoker player characters like straight into the story that we're going to be jumping into at Dragonflight and into, the world that our characters have inhabited for so long. I thought they did a really nice job of making it, it feel like it belongs there in a way. Obviously, they always do these kind of mechanics. It's kind of similar to the Demon Hunter thing where it's like, well, these characters have been locked away for a long time, and now there's a reason why they're being unsealed and all that. It's whatever, that kind of stuff has to serve the gameplay in a way, and so it's a little bit of that. But I thought it came off really well and really leads nicely into sort of that very early on Dragonflight starting experience that we saw come in last week for the quest to go to Stormwind or Orgrimmar and talk to the NPCs and kind of kick off that whole thing. That would usually be the beginning of the expansion that came in. And it was cool how that all kind of comes together and plays off of, the two different elements of the recently awakened evokers versus the Horde and Alliance characters. I don't think I'm going to play this tune at all, really, but I mean, it was really fun to, customize it out, make it look the way I wanted it to, and take it all through that questing. It was a good time. And then I spent a lot of time doing the pre-launch event, the Primal Storms. I got everything, I think. I got the bag on the character that I care about having the bag on. I got the pet. I got the toy from the vendor. And I got the heirloom from the drops. And I got all 13 of my level 60s per class up to full 252 plus.
Wow.
I just bought the vendor out of, I got all the Mog sets. The Mog is pretty not my style. It's quest gear. Like, it's recolors of Dragonflight quest reward gear. So it's kind of basic looking Mog, but whatever. It's stuff that I filled out in the set UI. So that makes me happy. I think I'm missing a couple weapon appearances, but I think I'm okay. I think I'm just going to move on with my life because I spent a lot of time grinding elementals and getting items and just even replacing like 246 purples or whatever because it was like, whatever, it's here. I'm going to do it. Everybody's going to start at 252 when I go to level them. One thing I will say about this event, this is your last week to do it. It's only been up for a week, so there's not a lot of time here. There's some cool, unique stuff like the heirloom trinket, and you may not really be using your time in a conducive way to getting what you want here. There is a lot of stuff to collect, The reason why I was able to get all of this stuff done relatively quickly is shard hopping. Like, you have to use the group finder, go into custom groups, find a group, type in the word boss, find a group that has the boss up that you're looking to kill for the zone that you're in. Make sure that your war mode state matches the group leader's state. It'll say it in the group finder. Join the group, and you can just chain kill bosses. The boss respawn timers in these zones are not short. So if you're standing around waiting for a boss to spawn, you are wasting valuable time on this event. Get in a group finder shard for one that has an active boss that you're like powering the shield down or fighting the boss. And then when that boss dies and you loot it, leave the group. You'll go back to your home shard. Maybe your boss is up at that point in your home shard. Maybe not. Get in a different group. Just keep twisting shards like that. And you'll rack up the boss kills. You'll get the items that you need for the trinket. You'll get plenty of the primal essence currency that you can go spend. You get like 25 to 30 per boss kill in addition to the other stuff you have to kill just to summon it. So, there's a daily quest to get 30, which you can cycle through multiple different tunes on. The primal essences are bind on account. So you can, I mostly did this on my warrior. I just, collected all this stuff and then sent the currency out to buy the items. So the event is very flexible. The only thing is, I don't know why they decided to make the boss respawn timer so long on individual shards. And it's not like obvious that this is the correct thing to do, is to just keep hopping shards. If you don't hop shards, you're going to be sitting around getting a slow drip of primal essences, maybe some loot drops if you're lucky. You're not going to get the pieces that you need for the heirloom thing, and you're really going to impact the yield per hour of the essences that you're pulling out there. So use a group finder, kill bosses, and use the currency to get everything you want, and you can finish this. Again, I did this across like 13 tunes. Not all 13 of those tunes needed like a full slate of gear, but that's one of every class. It's a lot. If you have like more modest goals than that, you could do this pretty fast if you use that technique.
Yeah, definitely good tips. And the shard hopping is something I always hate to see as the most efficient way to do it, because I just dislike doing it. It always feels a little scummy to me to be doing, but I do it. It's something that's necessary to get it done.
Yeah. If you want to kill the bosses, you just have to, because otherwise you're just standing around waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say is I did some Oldemon. The Oldemon kind of rework preview is available. It's normal difficulty, and it is very easy and straightforward, and it drops 278s. So
nice.
The only problem here is that the queue is evokers and evokers and evokers, and evokers can't tank. Yep. So if you were trying to do this on like an evoker or something, you're going to be in queue for a long time. But if you have a tank class and you would like to have 278s on said tank class, you should queue for this and do it. It's a pretty quick run. If you have like one decent up-to-date like DPS, the bosses die in like 40 seconds. It's not a particularly long run. Again, it's a normal dungeon. It's tuned to be easy. It's tuned to be kind of face rolly. The rewards are very good for the effort involved here, but maybe try to grab a tank buddy or something, or tank it yourself, because
that's a good call. Queue with a tank.
Like, hey, you got that paladin or whatever. Don't you want to gear that up? Come on, let's do some Oldemon. It's fun. It's fun revisiting that space. Some of the new touches look really great. Like the final boss room is gorgeous. Just a really nice interior zone, and I think it's a cool way to kind of tell that story of leading up to the incoming expansion. I guess what I'm saying is, like, don't be intimidated by it, and there's definitely stuff in there that's worth having.
Yeah, it's something where I would queue up for it as a DPS or a healer, and then go off and do other things for a while until the queue popped. Like it's back in those days. Yep. It's what you used to do. Yep. Where you'd queue up for it, and now it's even better. You can queue up for 3 or 4 things. So you'd be like, I kind of want to do an LFR, and I kind of want to do a battleground, I kind of want to do a dungeon. You queue up for all of them, and then wander around to whatever one pops first and do it. And while you're in it, you actually continue being the queue with the other ones. So when you get out, you don't lose your spot, if you will, in line.
Yeah, the multi-queuing is
which is nice. Yeah. So that's always a big bonus. Well, let's dive into what's going on.
You could farm primal essences while you wait in the queue.
That's true. Yeah, you do that. Yeah. Although you can't join, you couldn't do the shard hopping. Is the one.
It would break the shard hopping.
Yeah, but
you could get that. You get that trickle, and you could get the boss on your home shard.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're gonna jump into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, well, unless this has changed, there's nothing on the calendar for this week. Is that like a thing?
Yeah, there's just no weekly event. And I mean, I went and opened my vault. I don't think the guy there had a quest. So just taking the week off of the weekly event. So
I mean, all the staff's got to get at least some time off, right? I mean, like this guy's been giving out quests every single week
man.
inside, you know.
Like somebody's got to stand there and hand out the pet battle event quest. You know, that's a thankless job. So,
it is.
Yeah, they're giving that quest giver the week off, I guess. No weekly event. I think this is good actually. There's a lot of stuff to do in the game right now if you're desperately trying to check stuff off your pre-expansion list, right? I feel like this is a perfectly fine week to miss a weekly event because nobody is going to be clamoring for doing one. I don't feel like.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there's no reward for doing anything this week. Is there out of the chest? Is that right?
Yeah, you can't. I don't believe that you can even take a vault reward next week. Like,
yeah, I don't think
last week when we opened the vault, it said you can earn one more vault reward this season or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can do raid and you can do Mythic Plus and you can do PvP this week. It is available for you to do, but I do not think that you will be gaining progress towards a vault reward or that a vault reward will be present at reset next week. Yeah. Although you're not going to care about that. It's just also keep that in mind. Don't be like expecting that.
Yeah. Don't log out in Ouroboros at the vault being like, I'll get one last upgrade before I go level or whatever it is. Right.
Right. Yeah. So if you're looking for like a particular transmog piece or you've been holding off on taking the currency reward to get gem sockets or something, this is the vault. This is your last chance. So take that thing that you need to check off the list because you're not getting another Shadowlands vault, I don't think.
Yeah. All right, well, with that, the other stuff going on this week is we have rated battlegrounds and arena skirmishes for PvP quests. We got classic Ashran, which is like old school Ashran, giant map, really slow, gather fragments, activate bosses, coolness, if that's something you're interested in. It is a very inefficient way to farm honor unless you're just sitting around not doing a whole lot and trying to get as many honorable kills as possible, because you'll be in there for like an hour and a half at least. So just keep that in mind. There is the something different quest for completing a brawl, which is 5 marks of honor, 65 conquest, and 250 honor. But again, this is one of the longer ones. This is one of those special ones where it's like, hey, you know what? There was a large group of people who really enjoyed Ashran back in the day, so we'll put this brawl in. I personally try and avoid this. I think I've done it 3 times, classic Ashran, and every time I've been like, holy crap, this is taking forever. It's like an hour and 15 minutes in, and you're still going. You're like, okay, like this is a long battleground, so just keep that in mind. It definitely feels like the old AV days that you could go to bed after an AV had started and wake up in the morning and get back into the same one, which was absolutely
crazy. It's more
like
a persistent zone almost.
Exactly.
Like it is an instance, but
yeah,
and this is total whiplash from last week with South Shore Terran Mill, right? Which was like, okay, if you don't know what you're doing, like whatever, just go in there and have fun and get some HKs and it's quick games. And then this week it's classic Ashran, so yeah, none of that applies this week. Ashran and classic Ashran is its whole own thing with its own set of rules and meta strategies, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of long matches in there. But there is an audience. I mean, there were people who really liked Ashran in various stages of its warlord's life, so that's kind of a cool way to bring it back once in a while. But you won't find me in here this week.
No, I'm certainly not going to be there either. World bosses for the week are Nurgash Muckformed, the big dredger in Revendreth. This is your last week to see Nurgash, I guess. I guess Nurgash is really going away with his memories. He's leaving his memories behind. So
yeah, he is. I mean, I guess he'll still be around, but like man, if you still care, you're definitely not going to care 4 weeks from now when he comes back. But Nurgash does have your Frenzied Monstrosity for DKs, your Erratic Felkor for Demon Hunters, and your Adjecur's Madness for Warlocks. So, if you want to fill that out and just, get all your powers if you're missing one, yeah, it's our last week. This is the last time that you're going to see this. I would think that once Season 4 ends, post-season ends, and we're in expansion, like, the stuff will just revert to dropping the low item level stuff and everything. I don't know. If you need something, Nurgash is there this week, but yeah, we're pretty much down to the wire.
Yeah, exactly. All right, it's of course also Morgeth, the Fermenter of the Damned, and Antros, who are other world bosses that are up. And if you want a little bit of extra anima, feel free to head out there. There is still some loot that drops off them that's good for gearing up your alts, if that's something you want, because they're all faded at the moment. Mythic Plus affixes Tyrannical, Raging, Volcanic, meaning bosses have more health and deal increased damage. Non-boss enemies enrage at 30% health remaining, dealing increased damage until defeated. And while in combat, enemies periodically cause gouts of flame to erupt beneath the feet of distant players or beneath rugs or water where you can't see them. So be sure you're watching your feet. So yeah, overall, Tyrannical Week, this is great. It was a great Tyrannical Week. This is probably the best Tyrannical Week we'll see to end on inside of a season. Bosses are going to be tougher because it's Tyrannical. Raging doesn't affect bosses at all. It only affects trash. And really, as an effect for trash, it really just means, hey, when enough enemies get low, your tank should either be using big cooldowns or should be kiting and running these mobs away. As far as Volcanic goes, you just got to watch your feet. It's pretty easy to avoid. Yes, your range DPS is going to be targeted by it a little bit more than your melee. So if you are the only range DPS inside of a group, aka if you're the druid healer with a bunch of rogues and warriors and shamans and monks and whatever else inside the group, be sure you're just sidestepping frequently to avoid the volcanic that's going to be taking place under your feet very often. Overall, though, like this is a phenomenal Tyrannical Week in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, if you're in a spot where you need some Tyrannical rating, you need some points from a Tyrannical dungeon, and you're holding out hope, like I think your prayers to the Mythic Plus gods have been answered with this rotation. Last week was pretty good for Fort, man. It was a pretty favorable week. Like, again, I was timing a couple 21s and stuff. I actually picked up some rating last week. I think this week is similarly like you said. I mean, this is a really good combo for Tyrannical. Tyrannical bosses are tough, and I do. Tyrannical bosses feel quite healthy in this postseason. They haven't felt great to me. They've always just felt a little bit too healthy. But the damage has been mostly manageable, seemingly. So, if you need something, this is your last chance to get it. Last chance for teleports to the dungeons for plus 20s. Last chance for any rating related rewards like the mount or title or anything. So if you need it, go get it, because this is going to be. I'm glad it worked out this way, because this is a great way to cap off season 4 postseason and have an approachable Tyrannical Week where hopefully if somebody is pushing for that last minute reward that they can get there.
Yeah, hope so. Pilgrim's Bounty is currently going on as well. That's going to run until the 27th. That is the Thanksgiving event for those folks who are in the U.S. But it really is available to everybody. It's just that's what it's themed off of. The Spirit of Sharing is a buff that you can gain that increases reputation gain for 1 hour by 10%. And of course, there are different events you can complete to get the Pilgrim's Attire, as well as the Plump Turkey, and of course the Silver-Plated Turkey Shooter is the other big toy that people are going to be looking out for. If you're a Venthyr player and you're wanting to still try and max some things out, there is still the double friendship buff going on. So if this week is your last week, maybe head out there and make some new friends or increase your friendship with some of the folks who you invite over to the banquet that you can hold. And so, yeah, that's going to go till the 27th. You still got another 5 days left. Be sure that you're taking advantage of Pilgrim's Bounty while it's around.
Yeah, I must apologize to Pilgrim's Bounty because they did change the schedule on it last week. I derided Pilgrim's Bounty a bit, and I said that, well, this runs from the 22nd through the 29th, so it runs through expansion launch, which goes to show you everything you need to know about, its place in the holiday pecking order. But they moved it back a couple days. I guess the calendar is like super hot fixable or something, and they can and do make last minute changes to the calendar. So they bumped Pilgrim's Bounty back to start Sunday, just a couple days ago instead of today. So here you go. So sorry, Pilgrim's Bounty, and enjoy your full slate of Pilgrim's Bounty things before Dragonflight.
Yeah.
You do need the Silver-Plated Turkey Shooter, though. Like, if you don't have that, put that on your list this week. It's more important than any gear you're going to get this week.
Yeah.
Is being able to shoot your target, your friend, and turn it into a turkey. Go do that.
And of course, also wrapping up the 27th, the day before Dragonflight comes out, is the WoW 18th anniversary event that's going on, which obviously gets you that just for logging in care package with some time warp badges, as well as the, I guess I would call it item you can use that gives you a buff that increases your reputation and experience gains by 18%. So big thing to take advantage of through this last week before it goes away. There's the daily trivia questions down inside Caverns of Time, where you can get a bunch of experience basically for free, just logging in and answering trivia questions, which is pretty great. So park a few tunes down there. And then there's all the world bosses and all the rewards, and there's badge vendor with all sorts of like wands and pets and toys and cosmetics and stuff. So it's a good event to participate in if you're someone who's like, hey, you know what, Dragonflight's next week. I'm thinking about starting playing up WoW again. Maybe hop in this week just to sort of, knock out a couple of things around there, use a preset build for your talents, and get ready for Dragonflight to kick off next week. Lots of things to do in the game right now when it comes to like the anniversary event, when it comes to pre-patch event, lots of limited time rewards that will be going away from that pre-patch event. So just take advantage while you can, get in there while you can, and pick up some of these things. So yeah, certainly something you don't want to miss.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to point out one other thing too that's ending this week, which is the promotion to get the Proto Drake mount in retail from playing Wrath Classic.
Oh, all right.
You only have until Dragonflight comes out to do that. So if you're like, I'll do it later, now is your later, basically. So all you have to do is like log into Wrath of Lich King Classic, which you have access to with your WoW sub, make a DK and play through the DK starting experience until you get to your faction's capital. And once you get that far in, there's an achievement I think you get at the end of that quest chain. Once you have that, then you log over to retail and you get that cool frost-looking Proto Drake that is really quite a gorgeous and striking mount. So yeah, I would recommend that. I think the DK starting experience still holds up pretty well. Like it was just really well-designed questing. It tells a really cool story. And in Wrath, they got a bunch of new tools with vehicle tech and stuff like that. So they were showing a bunch of that off. Doesn't take super long to do. It's pretty fun. And so if you've been putting it off, don't miss out. It's a really cool free mount, and you might actually have some fun with the process. So just make sure keep that potentially on your list this week.
Yeah. All right. Outside of that, of course, we have some hot fixes that we want to go over as well. So the notable hotfixes for the week that we want to dive into is basically just like, hey, every class got touched again. They continue to do this, which is wonderful. I know we've been complaining a lot about, at least I've been complaining a lot about, hey, I want them to do class balancing more actively and on the fly. And with the raid launch timing of Mythic and Heroic launching at the same time, it's really important that things are in a good place. So I am very happy to see that they continue to sort of adjust and tweak and adjust and tweak so many classes every week and are just churning them out as opposed to going, yeah, you know what? We're going to hold all this back until Heroic launches. And once Heroic Week's done before Mythic launches, we will do this massive wave of tuning, right? Is what we normally see. As opposed to that, they're going, no, every week we're just going to actively dump what we've worked on so far and make sure that everyone is getting a chance to look at it, and we'll take care of that actively. So yeah, if your class, if you play World of Warcraft and you're interested about what might have changed for your class, certainly go and check out the hotfix notes, because there's probably something in there, including evokers. There's lots of things in there, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, and of course with a brand new class coming in, there's like some bug fixes
Yeah.
and some stuff not lining up super well with older content, so some of that stuff got fixed along the way as well. But one thing we saw sort of throughout the alpha beta development process was Brian Halinka in particular kind of mentioning like, we want to, tuning is going to be ongoing. We want to do more granular tuning and more frequent tuning, with 10.0 as kind of a starting point for them. I'm paraphrasing him here, but
yeah,
this is sort of the message that he had out there was like, because of the way the talent rework is and kind of the philosophy around current class design, that's sort of a goal for them, is to have, that kind of degree of balance tuning. So I'm surprised that they've done as much class tuning as they have at this point in pre-patch. It's certainly more than I feel like we typically see around these things. These time frames, these weird like spaces between expansions. It's like, well, here's all the changes. We'll tune it later. And that was my expectation for this one. And it's certainly not the way it's played out. I am hoping that what this bodes for the future is that they're going to keep their hand on the dial and make changes. And okay, well, this talent's underperforming a bit. We'll nudge it a little bit. This is overperforming a bit. We're going to nudge it back the other way. Or, this class just needs help across the board or whatever. Like, they have a lot of tools to do this. But I mean, it's just been so much touching up and tuning changes and stuff for a pre-patch cycle that it's a big surprise to me. And I hope what it means is that, we've talked about it on the show a lot at certain points in time where it's like the tuning just feels stale or this, there's stuff not being addressed or whatever. I hope this goes for encounter and boss tuning as well. Just they have the data. You can see who's doing what. They have the tools to do this without having to do like individual spells or abilities all the way down, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's my cause for optimism here, because I think there's some wisdom, like you don't want to touch up stuff too much because it gets confusing to players and it's hard for them to prioritize. But I think also to the way WoW is designed and tuned these days, this type of minutia doesn't really matter to like the casual player and the broad player base. But these kind of frequent changes really matter to the engaged players. This is what keeps people interested and trying to figure out new builds and strategies.
Yeah. As far as the other hotfixes go, they increased the drop chance on Son of Galleon's saddle, Reigns of the Heavenly Onyx Cloud Serpent, Reigns of the Cobalt, Primordial Direhorn, Reigns of the Thundering Cobalt Serpent, and Solar Spirehawk. They all apparently greatly. Which I guess if it's an incredibly low number, any kind of increase becomes a greatly large increase to that number. But yeah, they cranked all those up. So if you're someone who's been farming those mounts for a while, good luck. It's apparently going to be easier to get. So take advantage while you can, for sure.
It's a cool change. These are all world bosses, right? Or mostly.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
A bunch of them I recognize on site, but I don't know all of them. So yeah, they never do stuff like this, man. Increasing drop chances of old raid boss mounts, like that's not what they do. So this is a really cool change.
Yeah.
There were some of these are nice. It'd be cool things to have in the collection. So good luck to anybody working on them.
Yeah. They also fixed an issue where evokers were unable to roll need on certain offhand weapons and trinkets. This is fully expected. New class coming in. You got to classify it properly for the need greed system so that they can actually use it. Similar to like how warriors can't roll on, bows kind of idea, right? Like there's no use for them to be able to do it. This is the type of rule set that becomes tricky, where they need to make sure they fix all these things. So this is why it's good to have classes released before the expansion, so you're not hitting the first raid and going, oops, this loot dropped and none of our evokers can take it. That's a pain in the butt. You'd have to force feed it to them, as opposed to them being able to roll need on it like everybody else could. So I expect these things, and not surprising to see them. Similarly with the next one, which is the large green bags that evokers start with, can now be sold to vendors. It's another thing. They've generated a new item. That item wasn't classified properly, which means you couldn't sell it, so you just had to destroy it. So, voila, here they go, fixing these things.
Yeah, this is just weirdness, right? Like stuff. There's a bunch of stuff this week that was like spawning in at the wrong item level, like loot dropping at the wrong item level or something.
Yeah, BOEs.
There's stuff like that. There's stuff like, specific dungeons had loot that was messed up and wasn't dropping the right rewards. Like, I don't know. It's just what happens, that there was a patch and a bunch of data changed and then stuff breaks. So they were cleaning some of that up. One thing that's kind of funny that I didn't notice was that they changed Tome of the Tranquil Mind and other similar tomes to make them gray items and no longer usable. I just vendored all the ones I had hanging out after pre-patch. So I wonder if they changed the vendor price or anything on them, but that's kind of funny and unfortunate that you could just use it and have it do nothing and consume it, and then you didn't even vendor it for the pittance that you get from the vendor. Whoops.
Yeah, I was very pleased that they added that change, because I have probably 50-something tomes left on my character. I very, very early on the expansion bought 200 of them and just went, these will do me for the expansion. Guess what?
Right.
They did.
Right. And then some, yeah.
Yeah. So being able to sell this off now is actually a nice thing. But yeah, you have to remember, but now that I use the one bag thing, I actually have to remember, hey, you know what? When I open my bags, I have to find those and then sell them, because they're just taking up a bag space that I could use for something else, because they're no longer useful. So yeah, definitely something to check out. Apparently they also had a really close look at fishing this past week, because they fixed a whole bunch of things with fishing rods not working properly, not being able to gain the artifact power on the legendary fishing rod. They fixed an issue where apparently players weren't able to fish while sitting down with a fishing pole equipped. There was some weird stuff with that, so they sort of went back through and adjusted a lot of those sorts of bug fixes, which was good to see. man, having to stand up and fish all the time, it's like, what are we doing here, man? Like, really?
Like, or what if you just have your fishing pole equipped and you want to go sit somewhere else? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we saw a lot of stuff change around professions and profession created items and profession related goods and everything with this patch as well. Seems like, yeah, fishing got hit kind of hard. So if you're having issues with fishing stuff, it's probably fixed now, or at least some of it is.
It's in the works.
Yeah. I mean, some stuff changed, like stacks go to 1,000 now. Wow, that was a nice change.
Yeah.
But then also there's stuff like, well, they didn't put a new enchanting vellum in, and they broke the old enchanting vellums. So at the moment, you can't enchant vellums, and I don't think they're going to fix that. So if you need an enchant, you better find an enchanter and put the gear in the window, because you can't make any new scrolls right now, which is funny, but also it's like it's probably not worth fixing.
Right. Yeah, with work orders coming up too, it's going to be an interesting thing with how that ends up working. Of can you sell enchants on the auction house still, kind of idea. It'll be interesting to see what they choose to do with that. But yeah, they fixed an issue apparently also where aqua bombs in ice/water storms could instantly kill players. Yeah, anything that says instantly kill players, probably something that should be fixed. That's not something you really want in the game.
Yeah, I feel like the ice water elemental storm and the storm elemental storm are the two more obnoxious ones, because you got like a lot of displacement and disruption and stuff, and getting insta killed by one of the abilities is really not what you want, though. That's gonna talk about impacting your hourly yield of the primal essence currency. Getting one shot by aqua bombs would certainly cut into that.
Yep. So that's a nice thing to see that fixed. They also made it so that well, this is something you actually mentioned last week, but I want to highlight again this week, because this was something they did a little blog post about. Players who have reached level 60 and have completed the Shadowlands level up campaign on a different character will be able to choose Threads of Fate option, allowing them to skip the level up campaign and begin the end game of Shadowlands. So the Threads of Fate system is no longer available for any characters who haven't already entered it prior to the recent update. So just keep that in mind. You can't finish another character and then switch back over to a character you were partway through and then choose Threads of Fate. You have to actually start into that path from the beginning, going into that.
Right.
So
yeah, you had to been far enough through the process already. I got a feeling that at least at the moment, not too many people are going to be interested in leveling to 60 via Shadowlands anyway. Something tells me that. So probably not too much of a deal breaker for anybody. But it sounds like, going forward, you're mostly going to just be looking at doing campaign stuff for Shadowlands if you choose to do that for Chromie time. But I don't know. I mean, it really wasn't a bad level up experience, but I feel like if I ever was leveling up another character from scratch, it wouldn't be the place I would go.
I just want out of the Shadowlands for a little bit. That's what I need. I'll go back there eventually and level up through Ardenweald and really enjoy that experience. And it's a beautiful place, and it's a really great level up experience. For me, it's just I need Azeroth for a bit. Just give me Azeroth for a bit, and I'll, think about that later on. I think that's where my mind is.
I personally know quite a few people who are waiting for Shadowlands to get rolled into Chromie time so they could just level up somewhere else when they had a character they wanted to play.
Right.
So, yeah.
The last one I want to mention here is that the Battle for Azeroth Allied Race Unlock quests are now correctly available at level 50. So if you're someone who's trying to do all the unlocks for your allied races, they're now all available correctly at level 50. So keep that in mind, which is good. And then we didn't actually grab very many blue posts this week, but something we did want to highlight, which is going to go over here for a second, and Jason can take lead on this, is Blizzard Entertainment and NetEase are suspending their game services in China. So this means that games like World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch are all, once this actually goes through, which is going to be later this year, or beginning of next year, something like that, they are going to be rolling that stuff out. You're not going to see it anymore. They're, it's going to be gone.
That's the plan currently. Yeah. I mean, this is terrible news for Chinese Blizzard gamers. They said they're still going to release Dragonflight. They're still going to release the upcoming Hearthstone expansion. They're still going to release the Overwatch 2 season roll. But, that the customers there are only going to have 2 months to play with most of that stuff. So this is just bad news. I guess Diablo Immortal is covered under a separate agreement. So Diablo Immortal will continue to operate in China, which seems essential to Diablo Immortal's continued existence to me.
Yeah.
But you know, the way it works in China is like you have to have a licensing agreement with like a state sponsored company like NetEase. You know, the the government controls these businesses, and you have to have an agreement to operate within the country with a Chinese, you know, licensing agent, basically. And yeah, so NetEase has been operating Blizzard's games in China for a long time now, like 14 years. We did see previously there was like some kind of lapse in the licensing agreement back in like I forget when it was, but it was around 2009, 2010, something like that. And like China was stuck on Burning Crusade for like a year longer than everywhere else. They got Wrath of the Lich King later than they were supposed to because of licensing stuff. And then, yeah, eventually, like NetEase would do like simultaneous releases and stuff for Blizzard products and everything. Um, the thing was like, the thing about this whole deal is Blizzard's Chinese business is a tiny part of Activision Blizzard, the holding company that owns Activision Blizzard, King, etc. It's a tiny part of their business, but it's a significant part of Blizzard's business. So this sucks. I mean, you know, this isn't necessarily like the end of the story forever. It's possible that Blizzard could come to terms with NetEase or a different partner, whatever the regulations are for the market. You know, whatever they got to do to deal with the Chinese government to have a licensing agreement there. It sounds like, I mean, Activision Blizzard and NetEase both released public statements, and you know, Blizzard's kind of came off as like, well, thanks, it's been a pleasure, goodbye.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't reach an agreement that was up to Blizzard standards, basically. And NetEase's was basically like, well, we couldn't make Blizzard happy, and we're committed to serving our customers the best we can for as long as we can, and we're going to keep trying to work this out. Um, so you know, I don't know. I mean, I would say at the moment, the immediate future is pretty bleak. I don't think that either one of these companies would be making noise about this if there was some kind of hope that they'd have a new agreement in place before January 23rd. It sounds like that is not the case. The other thing, though, is because of the way that foreign companies operate in China, like Blizzard is not dealing with a peer in NetEase, right? Not really, not in the way that like we understand it. Blizzard needs to deal with the Chinese government, and so are they going to get radically different terms from a different partner organization than from NetEase? Probably not. I mean, no, you know, we don't know the particulars here, but like the companies have to do what the government says. The companies have to offer the terms that the government is comfortable with, and that's all the negotiation they can really do. And Blizzard either says yay or nay, and I don't know if it's up to Blizzard management or if it's up to Activision Blizzard management to decide if the deal is acceptable or not. I kind of suspect that it's in the hands of Activision Blizzard because I feel like Blizzard would probably want to keep that Chinese market strong, whereas, you know, Activision Blizzard doesn't care about it anywhere near as much. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a developing story for a while, I feel like. I'm sure this isn't the last we've heard of this. But, I mean, NetEase did say, like, they're going to retain player data and everything, and if they can get a new agreement in place that people will be able to access their accounts again on out the other side. But man, like I feel bad for the players. Like they don't deserve this. It's just this is the circumstance of like where they live and the business climate and everything like that. I mean, imagine just everybody else worldwide is playing WoW and there's new stuff to do and they're doing what they want to do with it and they have this long history with their account and their characters and their friends and everything. And your servers just get turned off and that's the end of it.
Yep.
I mean, it's just sucks. Like it's not a great situation. So I'm hoping for the sake of the players that something presents itself for somebody to run these services for these games. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that the Chinese government is going to tell Blizzard how they want it to be, and Blizzard says yay or nay, and that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, that's sort of the way it has to be to do business in China, and we've certainly seen Blizzard have its run-ins with their Chinese business partners and with their products in China in recent years. I think of like the Hearthstone esports stuff from a couple of years ago. It's that this is a deal that you make, and this is how it goes. So I mean, we'll report back on it if we hear anything else. I mean, this is my take on it. Obviously, like I'm not an expert in this, but this is what we know. This is what we've been told, and we see that this is how this works. I mean, actually, if you read, I reference this on shows all the time, but if you read John Statz's book, the World of Warcraft Diary, he talked about kind of some of the stuff they had to do to get the game licensed in China and start operating it there. So that was kind of an interesting read as well. It's not the same thing as hosting a game in other countries. It's a whole different situation. And I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully the Chinese Blizzard gamers aren't disrupted for too long, and they can get back to playing the stuff that they want to do.
Yeah. I feel for him. I can't imagine just being told, essentially, hey, FYI, you have basically at some point during Dragonflight, you are going to no longer be able to play World of Warcraft anymore. Like, what?
We don't know if ever or anytime soon, or it's definitely getting shut off. But good luck to you.
Yeah, it's painful. That's a very painful thing for people to go through. So, yeah, I feel for them. And I'm with you. I hope they find another service that'll be able to step in and host and cover that, and they can get around, or at least make a deal with whatever government organization is making these decisions. So yeah, that's sorry for those folks over there. I can certainly feel for them. All right, well, we have our last letter of not Dragonflight, of Shadowlands. We have more letters that are going to come inside Dragonflight that we want to cover here, Jason. We got a letter in here, and this is from Boo on Argent Dawn, who says, so I know the two of you are incredibly in favor of Master Loot, but I wanted to offer an alternative perspective. From a pugging perspective, I absolutely hated Master Loot. I remember playing and trying to find groups, and it was literally miserable to try to and get into groups. The only groups that I could play in were pure pugs who set up personal loot. I couldn't play in a guild group because I wouldn't get anything. My favorite groups to play with are now guild pre-mades and helping them progress. And if we get something down, I might actually get some loot. I think Master Loot hurts raid. I think Master Loot hurts partially pugging guilds way more than it helps it. I only see Master Loot working in every individual in the raid is in the guild. Sorry, if every individual in the raid is in the guild. It's not enough just to have guild run status. And from a Blizzard perspective, I totes get the amount of tickets that have had come through due to the abuse of the system has to be enormous. The consequence of every individual must be in a guild, and the flex size of Heroic means that less guilds overall will have open spots for pugs. They will just spend more time leveling those alts and will get help to fill the 10 to 15 people in Heroic. That could be detrimental to small server individuals who have to rely on pugging for high-level content. Long story short, I think for a lot of people who have to pug for completion of content and guilds who have spots to fill, Master Loot is an active detriment to their health. Now, there's a strong argument that we need more communities and that Master Loot could force that, but forcing communities seems like a really tough / bad choice in my opinion. P.S. Appreciate the podcast. Disagree with a lot, but do appreciate the alternate perspectives a lot of the times. Best. I'm going to go with Boo, which is what I led with on Argent Dawn. Okay, so I mean, interesting perspective in the sense of would Master Loot in general that guilds could use, even if they have, let's say it was a 16-person rule, so four people out of the 20 are not part of your guild group, but you can turn on Master Loot, being an active detriment to finding those 4 people, or at least to those 4 people who they do find, because the chances of getting loot are substantially lower, since it feels as though you're favoring guild members over non-guild members when it comes to giving out loot. And I mean, a lot of this is subjective in the sense that it depends on the group that you're with, it depends on the people you're playing with, it depends on the rules of the group. There's a lot of things that sort of come into play here, but in general, I think in more cases than not, you are going to find groups that are trying to find a specific piece of loot for a specific player. And if you're someone who's joining as a pug and wants that, you're not going to get it. The important thing to me that's always been clear when we're bringing people in is defining what loot is available to people who are looking to join. I think that's a really crucial thing when you're bringing in pugs into any situation with a pre-made group. Going, hey, you know what? This trinket and these weapons, they're spoken for, but everything else, we're going to do free rolls, or we're going to do whatever it is or in a lot of cases, you're just going to get fed a ton of gear because our team doesn't need this stuff anymore. We're here for these specific things. So don't gripe if these things drop and you don't get them, but otherwise you're going to probably get a bunch of loot. So I think that's what ends up happening in a lot of cases with the teams I end up playing with, but I do understand your perspective on it, and it's entirely valid. It's what your experience is. And certainly something that is common in the community to run into teams that were really just trying to fill out some spots and don't really give the people coming in to help out a second thought because they are nameless, individuals on the internet who they have no connection to versus their team who they play with regularly. So I feel for you in that way. I think that giving the option to players, in my opinion, is better than not having the option. I think giving the teams the ability to choose to do that, even in the situation of the 4 extra individuals, puts the onus more on you as the individual to sort of ask what the clear details are around the raid team and where loot's going to go, but also puts the onus on the teams to sort of be respectful of that. Otherwise, they're going to stop finding people to run with them. There has always been a very large reputation following for a lot of teams and people. I know people who have had their reputations destroyed inside World of Warcraft as a character, and they literally can't play that character anymore because they won't get into groups because they've been, basically blacklisted in a lot of cases from being able to actually participate in those groups. So I'm personally of the opinion that you got to be nice in World of Warcraft. You got to try and be friends with people. Otherwise, you're going to build up that reputation that no one wants to play with you. That's the way I've always sort of played, in the sense of I always check myself before typing something inside chat that might be seen as, aggressive or, explaining something that doesn't need to be explained, or being sarcastic or snarky, right? I always try and think about something before I express it, because you don't want to become that guy that people go, hey, I don't want to play with this person, or I saw this person the other day inside this group, and they tell their friends and they tell their friends, and all of a sudden you end up in a situation where you can't play with, a lot of people. So I think more people could certainly benefit from having that perspective on the game of, hey, you're part of a community. This isn't you just, playing with nameless internet people. You're certainly going to be recognized and going to be, someone who, if especially inside the higher Mythic Plus scene or whatnot, you're going to get in trouble if you are known to be a problem. So I play a little differently, but it's good to hear your perspective on it, and I know Jason probably has more to add on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you pug, then yeah, you don't want Master Loot and you don't like it. I get that. I never pug raids ever. I never have pugs in my raids. Basically, I might have trials or whatever, but I don't like list my group in the group finder and then grab people. I don't do that. And I guess if I did, if I had the option to Master Loot, then I would probably reserve loot that guild members were looking for if I knew about it in advance, right? But I think that's a fair ask for a pug, right? Granted, this email came in when we were talking about, looking ahead and hoping that there'd be some changes to the loot system. And now, obviously, we got a big change to the loot system, and we know that Master Loot is off the table now for the foreseeable. I don't really think that they're going to decide to go back and drop Master Loot in season 2 of Dragonflight or something, right? I think we're probably locked in with this for at least the next little while here, which I think it's a decent compromise between the two ends of the spectrum, right? If you are somebody who plugs into a lot of groups, or if you have a group of 15, 16 people and you want to just snag people out of the finder to round out your group and hope for the best, then, you want the loot to go out. You want people to join your group, so you want them to be motivated to be able to get loot. So yeah, something like personal loot maybe is preferable to you because you don't have that consistent roster. In my case, I have the same people, or when I recruit people in, my assumption is that they're going to be with us week in, week out for as long as we're doing it. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's kind of the basis. And I want to see a variety of drops, and I want to be able to get the drops where they need to go. Your top performers perform better when they have the best loot. If you get a good piece of loot, your top performer is going to do more with it than your middle of the road performer. And yeah, your middle of the road performer might close the gap because now their gear is approaching, maybe it's better gear than the top performer, or maybe it's approaching their gear level, or narrowing the item level gap. But, when you're looking at prog and you're looking at really powering up your group and pushing through, like, you want to be able to make sure that the correct people, the consistent attendees, are getting the drops. And at least we could do that to some degree now with the group loot changes, where it's like, we can ask people to be nice. Like, okay, don't roll need on this because so-and-so it's getting defaulted to them, or, hey, this would actually be better if so-and-so had it, so could you trade it to them? Which is not quite master loot, but, like, again, social stakes are so important in this game, and loot is like the biggest motivating factor that makes people want to do anything in a game like this. So if you can tie the reward system of loot together with social stakes, that's kind of where it all starts to come together. And the game was way more like that in the olden days. It has been way less like that through the last few years here. I think it's going to be a little bit better now. But yeah, I to me, like, the master loot discussion is kind of dead because I don't think we're going to see any changes to what we got right now. But I think what we have right now is good enough, right? Because guilds that have stakes, guilds that respect each other and that play together on a regular basis, can distribute their loot as they see fit. There's no trading restrictions, right? You make sure that the loot goes where it needs to go, which is effectively master looting, even if it's not as elegant.
Yeah.
But you can plug people in and they can participate in the system, and it's up to you if how you want to run your group and what is going to qualify a pug to be able to roll on a piece or be considered for a piece or whatever that they don't win a roll on, right? Somebody's running the group, somebody's in charge of that stuff, you can make that decision. But if you're plugging into a group, right, like, maybe if you are not real uppity about, like, soaking up a bunch of drops, like, maybe you get invited back, maybe that becomes not a pug anymore. Maybe if you're willing to participate in the team and the schedule works out for you and stuff, like, this is how these kind of social connections get formed, is people playing at the same level at the same times with the same goals and cooperating with each other. That is the point. The point is to cooperate with people and overcome these bosses and these challenges in the game, not to get the loot drops, right?
Yeah.
So that's my perspective on it. I think I do think moving from master loot to what we have now could help people be like, you know what, I should really I need to be in a stable, raid guild situation. I need to raid with the same crew on a regular basis. It makes raiding a lot more fun in general than hitting the button and hoping that you can get an invite to a thing with a group that knows what they're doing and can kill a boss and will give you the loot. Again, there's, like, work you have to do outside of logging in the game, maybe to find necessarily, like, the group you want to be in. But yeah, I don't know. I guess ultimately we'll see how it goes. I was not super bothered by the personal loot only change when it came in initially, but then over the last 3-4 years, it's been evident that for my group composition and the way that they design the game and design loot tables, that I have severe problems with personal loot that I don't think they can solve. I mean, even lightening the trading restrictions would help a bit, but you'd still get so many duplicate drops and just, stuff that nobody's excited about getting, like a cloak or a belt or whatever. Those kind of commonly drop loot, and getting rings or whatever the case may be. It's like, raid loot's supposed to be exciting. Personal loot felt really sterile. It was like you weren't even participating in the loot's existence. You don't see the loot window and all that. Like, I think it was worth a shot for a time. I think they held on to it too long. I'm glad that it's gone. I don't think what we have now is perfect, and I don't think there is a loot system that's perfect. But man, the the lack of choice with personal loot was a terrible thing. I think it's actually less bad with group loot because the system's inherently more flexible. I think it's actually smart that there's no choice at the moment because you don't have to min-max like what loot system are we supposed to use for this boss in this situation. So
Yes.
I guess
Yes.
that's the
Thank
best
you.
part for me.
Yes. Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is not having if we have 14 people, then we're gonna have a guaranteed chance of this many pieces of loot. But if we have 16 people, then that chance changes to this, and we should have this many melee in for this boss and this many ranged in for that boss to try and force particular pieces of loot to drop. Like, it's just ugly with when systems go that way. So I'm with you that I think the current system is going to work well in the sense that it gives everyone one choice, and that one choice is one that I think is a decent one for people. So I like it. I think that what we currently have is going to work. I was a big advocate for Master Loot. I still am a big advocate for Master Loot being a thing because it just lets teams, even in almost like in character sense, be able to distribute loot to their strongest players and really show off what someone's earned and sort of have that experience created. But like at least we have something that I feel like there's a little more control over. You can still have everyone pass and one person need everything and then that person trade stuff out, and like that is still a thing. So I appreciate that this system at least allows for that kind of flexibility. All right, with that, we're going to play a quick sounder for our patrons, and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Celian, Infark, Kapawi, Mibble the Mighty, Nick, and Shorel. Thank you. This sounder is for you. Our Patreon's located over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. If you want to hop in and support the show, we always appreciate having people, support us and help us create the content that we create. It means a lot to us. No new patrons this week, but again, thank you again for all the support. And we're going to have a patron episode in early to mid-December. So be sure you're writing down your questions, submitting your questions along the way. Haven't gotten a ton of them submitted in yet, but we're looking forward to going through all the Dragonflight ones that I'm sure are going to be popping in like crazy in a week's time as people start to figure things out. And that'll let us sort of solidify when the show is going to be in December and then be able to record that and answer all those fun patron questions. You can submit those either through Discord or through Patreon, and I'll let you know how to join the Discord a little bit later on if you're curious. But yes, thank you very much to all our patrons.
Absolutely. Thanks for the support, patrons. And yeah, I have a feeling that people might have some topics they want to discuss after about, I don't know, Monday evening next week, potentially. So, yeah, we obviously will have a big expansion launch show coming up next week, and then we'll get the final patron episode of 22 on the calendar for early mid-December somewhere soon. So right now we're just kind of everything is the calm before the storm with expansion coming out. We'll iron that stuff out once we're at the other side of Dragonflight launch.
Yeah, exactly. If you folks want to support the show in a different way, you can leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Apple Podcast. Those 5 stars really mean a lot to us. They help us raise up those charts, more people find the show, and we love reading them here live on the show. And we don't have one right now, which means, hey, get yours in if you want us to read it on the show. We really appreciate them, and still trying to get as many 5 stars as we can. That wraps up episode 552 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or tweet to us on Twitter, or you can join our Discord over at thestartingzone.com/discord. We have some swag as well over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. You can check out all the designs on shirts and mugs and stickers. And it's it is a shorter episode this week, but a lot of that comes down to we are anticipating very large episodes in the coming weeks. So
yeah, I mean, it's actually a slow news week because I mean we're just waiting for them to flick the switch. We got everything else in the game right now, and there's plenty of stuff to go do this week if you still have stuff to check off the list. Also, about the TeePublic store, they are running their Black Friday sale. I think it's on right now, and I think it goes through Wednesday next week. So, $13 tees and 40% off, like pretty much everything else. So, if you want some TSZ merch, this is the week to buy it for sure, because this is like one of the biggest sales they do.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. They do sales pretty often, but yeah, you don't want to miss out on this one if that's something you're interested in picking up. Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald for as long as Twitter is online and functional and people
And
are still
free.
using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, as long as my experience hasn't actually dramatically changed. So as long as it's the case, I'll stay there for now. You can also find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. I just want to say, amazing streams last week with the drops program going on. Finally did drops for World of Warcraft, and my channel was very lively and fun. It was great to see people hanging out and taking the ride with me. And congrats everybody who got their Dragon Kite pets and everything. Super fun promotion. So didn't do any YouTube streams last week because I didn't want people watching on there when they could be watching on Twitch and getting their drops progress. So this week we'll probably do some co-streaming stuff to Twitch and YouTube, and then next week for expansion launch we have the other round of drops for the Feldrake. So pretty cool stuff. So check out the stream channels as well.
Yeah. If you're trying to find me, you can find me over on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or up on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, and over on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. Yeah, I haven't done anything on Twitch or YouTube in a little bit, but obviously with Dragonflight coming, most likely I'll be hopping into to doing that content creation there as well. I'm just hoping to, I guess, have my work slow down a little bit in the holiday season and knock some stuff out. It'll be a good time, so see what happens with that. But with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.